Welcome back to Routine Rundown. Today we have Brittany Lo, the founder of Beia. All I want to keep singing is let's talk about sex because I feel like this is like our first sexual wellness skincare episode, which is really exciting because I feel like those are two things that are not often grouped together. I feel like Beia is really the only brand that's doing it, and I'm excited for us to dive in on all this.
Thank you so much for having me on. We have such great organic conversations. So I'm excited to be on here and talk all things sex, all things Beia, and all things that happen in the bedroom.
Yay. Okay. So, Brittany, let's start. For those who aren't familiar with the brand, tell us a little bit about Beia and what it's all about.
So Beia is skincare meets sexual wellness. And so we found that 8 out of 10 women said their number one insecurity in the bedroom is body image. So we've created premium vegan skincare products that address things like sweat, body odors, body blemishes, etc., so that you could enter the bedroom feeling your most confident in your own skin. No, and also knowing that like orgasming and pleasure is mostly mental. So we don't want to fill up your headspace with wondering if your partner can smell you. We want you to really feel confident and enjoy the experience. And so that is Beia. We have just a few SKUs right now, but the whole premise was really empowering women to feel comfortable and confident in their own skin.
I can't even begin to say how much I love this because I feel like I had never heard skincare and sexual wellness talked about in this way. I'd never heard kind of like body insecurity talked about in terms of beauty. I imagine most of our readers haven't either. I think I don't know. I feel like we're all kind of conditioned to be like, if you feel insecure, like you just deal with it and figure it out. Like it's not really like solutions based. And I feel like you are really providing solutions for I don't know, the pimples on my butt.
Exactly. Well, the funny part is I have another company I started about 9 years ago called Beautini, and we work with women like leading up to their wedding day. And so for years, I always wrote like in my second grade journal, I'd have a beauty line one day, but did not know where like the white space was in the beauty world. So I was like, let me start off by building a service-based company where we do hair and makeup on real women and like talk to them and see what do they need. And so what was funny was myself included, I would always worry about like blemishes on my butt because they'd be uncomfortable if I wore jeans and then sitting in the office all day, or if I smell before getting intimate. All that I could think of is if my partner could smell me. And I just thought that was like a me problem. But then having these women come in for their like hair and makeup trial before their wedding day, I thought that they would always just ask about what lipstick we're using or how to curl their hair. But they were coming in being like, listen, like I feel a little embarrassed, but like I have these blemishes on my breast. I can't get rid of them and I have a low cut dress. Like, what do you do? Or like I sweat really easily. Is this gonna hold? Or like, hey, like when I sweat, I smell really bad. And she's like, I'm gonna be hugging my guests all night long, let alone can we talk about my wedding night? And so it was interesting because everyone asked these questions a little bit like shamefully, not knowing if this is like even a thing that has a solution to it. And so just like having my own personal experience with navigating dating and intimacy and having those insecurities myself, and then talking to so many other women about it too, it really made me realize that we really focus on anything that you can see, right? Like your face will put serums and creams and eye creams and etc. But when you can't see it on your body, if you're in pain or if it looks gross, people almost say like, oh, don't worry about it. Like no one can see it. Who cares about a blemish on your butt? Like doesn't matter if it's painful or uncomfortable. No one can see it. So like stop talking about it. And so that's where I realized that there's so much correlation between like body confidence and skincare solutions that can really help our confidence, that also ties with our like sexual confidence and our sexual health, where there was a lot of room for improvement to make it feel like a beauty brand versus like this clinical something's wrong with you type of brand. So I had like a lot of fun just trying to figure out what does that beauty brand look like, which happened to be in sexual wellness.
It's so cool. And I think, as you were talking, I was thinking a lot about like what the traditional perceptions of the link between beauty and sexual wellness are. And I feel like it's always been like put on a red lipstick, tease your hair, like wear some sexy lingerie. And like all of that's amazing. Like we love
And
that.
usually
But
for
I think,
someone else, right? Not for you.
yeah,
It's always like, oh, make that man like look whatever it might be, but it's not about you.
yeah, right. It's like doing things to like cover up almost instead of like feeling really comfortable in your own skin, which is why I feel like Beia is a really important addition to that conversation.
I love, and when you think about it, like when are you most exposed? Like with showing your full body, maybe in a bikini on the beach, but mostly it's like in the bedroom. And so, like you're saying, is like yes, we've been conditioned to like try to look sexy in a certain way, but then really we feel awkward when we're trying on these like lingerie pieces that don't really fit our bodies, and then just like adds to this like insecurity when you do enter the bedroom. And like ultimately that is where you're so vulnerable. Like where else are you walking around naked, right? Like it's in the bedroom.
Yeah, I'm like I'm like, well, I live in a studio apartment, so my bedroom is just the entire apartment. But
Love
yeah,
that. I'm true. I do love to strut around my apartment naked.
like
So maybe it's the apartment, not just the bedroom.
yeah, the kitchen and the bedroom are basically the same over here. But like that sounds bad. So I think, as we've said, skincare and sexual wellness really aren't typically grouped together. Let's talk a little bit about the specific products and how they address kind of the different skincare needs that people might want to address in terms of their sexual well-being.
Yeah, of course. And I will say, like, a lot of times when you think about sexual wellness, at least when I was starting to work on Beia in 2020 during the pandemic, was you see it a lot of brands that maybe are in like the I think it's like family planning section of CVS, and they're like neon bottles filled with questionable ingredients. They're goopy, and you hope and pray that no one sees you at that drugstore as you're purchasing them. And so, like, that's what I feel like a lot of people think about when you think about sexual wellness, or at least when you used to think about like sex and sexual wellness. And so, for us, why I think that so many times like consumers now focus on the ingredients that we're eating or putting on our skin when it comes to our face and skincare. And so when we thought about sexual wellness, to me, that's really like a 360 approach to beauty, right? You have physical beauty, sexual wellness, and your physical or your mental health. And so we wanted to merge like this beauty piece of sexual wellness. And so part of our thought process with the whole product line was how can this be multi-purpose so it integrates into your everyday skincare routine, but also can be incorporated in your sex routine, but doesn't mean that you have to be sexually active like on a daily basis in order to be able to use Beia. And so long story short was we started with our daily hydrating and setting mist that gives you the morning after glow, but doesn't have anything to do with sex or intimacy. Because what we found from working with a bunch of women developing our products was we couldn't just come out as a sex brand because we would have alienated so many of our customers. And the other piece is people want to know what they're putting on their skin, let alone in their body. So it's like, how do we create a product that you use topically, plays off of this whole like sexual morning after glow, but it really allows people to understand the quality of our ingredients, quality of our formulas. And so that was our first product. Our next product was our refresh wipes. And so going back to the multi-purpose aspect was I personally, if I was out on a Friday night at a bar dancing my butt off and would go home with someone, the first thing I would think about is like, oh my gosh, I'm so smelly. What do I do? And I used to use like a makeup wipe or whatever I had in my clutch to kind of freshen up, maybe borrow their like hand towel, which is disgusting, and then
We've all
use,
been there.
pour the water. We've all been there, right? And I was like, okay, there has to be a better solution. I am now almost 30 years old. Like, let's see what's out there. And so the premise of that towel was one, I did not want it to look like a V wipe or a feminine wipe, where if someone opened up your clutch or opened up on the floor of the bar, people aren't like, ew, what is that? But rather it looks like a makeup wipe. Our wipes are like 99% like aloe vera juice. They have tea tree water, so they're very soothing. All of our products are vegan and fragrance free. So you can really use them head to toe in intimate areas without kind of irritations or affecting your pH. And so those you can use simply if you're running to a meeting after work and you need to freshen up, but they're also pH balanced, so you can use them pre and post sex. So again, you can use them post gym, travel, intimacy. We want to give you the power to use our products how you want. Fun part is we even have clients writing in how they use them when breastfeeding, because they said that they smell like rancid milk, or after their IVF appointments when they use sonogram gel. It allows women to be able to really freshen up before going back to the office. And then our last product, which is super exciting, is our body and intimacy serum. So this is essentially our lube, but it first is a coconut oil based body serum, and it comes in this beautiful glass pump. Does not look like a lube or honestly even a body serum, but you pump it out and it gives you a really nice hydrated glow on your skin. You can use it as a massage for some foreplay, no fragrance, no essential oils. So you don't have to worry about it like trickling down anywhere and like burning you at all. And then it also doubles as a personal lubricant for sex. And so again, you can use this just as skincare if you have no intention of getting intimate, or you can use this for self-pleasure or with a partner, while also keeping this on top of your nightstand rather than hiding it in the back of your sock drawer. So those are the three we have right now, and we have a few more in the works, one coming out, I think, early fall, which will be really exciting. But those are our lineup, and kind of they're all like multi-purpose. They don't sound like a traditional lineup. But the cool part is we got feedback from real women on their needs and create products that way.
I feel like with the serum, I would be like, hold on a sec, babe. My elbows are looking dry. Like, need to hydrate, and then we can get back to it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We love
You're
a
like the product
multitasking
development phase.
products. Yep.
Exactly. You're like, okay, my skin looks beautiful. I'm having sex. Give me a
Yep.
massage while we're at it. Yeah, you can do it all.
It's
Who says you
amazing.
can't do it all, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love also, and we've talked about this before, you and I, like the idea that these products, as you said, like they're not, yes, they're so helpful in the context of sex, but for women who are breastfeeding, as you said, for women going through IVF, like these are also things that no one's really talking about. And I feel like it's stuff that you're like, I wouldn't even know as somebody, for example, who's never done either of those things, that like you needed products for that, right? And so I imagine like it's a really new way to kind of meet women where they're at.
100%. And even for like the body and intimacy serum, like I specifically wanted an oil-based lubricant to start off with because of the skincare components to it. And also like dryness is one of the concerns for a lot of women, no matter what age you are. But what we did find is we have a lot of women, like this is created for women who are experiencing dryness. And that's also like generally a concern when women are going through menopause too. So we've had some really impactful stories where I've created these products with a few intentions in mind, but we've had the woman being like, listen, like I am only like 37 years old and I just found out I am going through menopause and I am like really struggling with this process. And I find that I can use your serum and enjoy sex again and things like that. And so that's where our products and like the impact of the brand is where I love hearing these stories and seeing how people are taking these products and making them their own.
Yeah. I mean, like I think about it, it's wild that like sexual wellness products that weren't horrible for women, that weren't like like sticky lube and like all of that, like didn't exist until so recently. I'm like, oh wow, there are brands that are thinking of us now. Like it's really just, it's great.
And also when you think about like how crazed a consumer is on like the level of ingredients and like where ingredients are sourced with what we eat, like, and now it's like you're seeing that more in beauty and skincare, but like we are just getting there when it comes to sexual wellness, and those are the products that you're putting inside your body. And so it is fascinating to me that it has taken until like 2023 to get to this spot.
Yeah, now we just need another male birth control, and then then it'll all be equal.
And that's a whole other
until
story.
then, yeah, I'm like, man. So, and I think you bring up a good point just about like the beauty sex moment that we're in, and like how, you know, as we're talking about, like women are coming to the forefront of this conversation. Like, you can buy a vibrator at Sephora now. Like, these are things that didn't exist until very recently. How do you think we got to this moment where beauty and sexual wellness feel like they're merging in a really new way?
Well, I think that this is always, I mean, when you think about how everyone got the earth, it's through sex, right? And I think that now, I always said that some of the biggest taboo pillars was salaries, politics, and sex. And I feel like there was a lot of movement in the other two pillars where now it was almost like time where like we were seeing a moment of like more women in like empowerment and more in like these leadership roles. And I think we were just having this moment, but also during the pandemic, people got very lonely, right? You weren't hanging out with people, you couldn't casually go on dates. And I think that showed a lot of people that like your sexual health and like being intimate with yourself or with your partner is something that we do need, right? It's not just a want, it's not just a hobby, it's a true need for a human. And so the sales for vibrators skyrocketed during the pandemic. So I do think that expedited this category a lot more. And once we saw that, even from like an, from an SEO perspective for different publications, they wanted to start talking about it a little bit more. And then retailers saw that there was a lot of money like that they're missing because people were buying vibrators on Amazon. And I like really commend Sephora by taking this lead on doing this conversation, emerging beauty and wellness in a very thoughtful way, and like launching vibrators and sexual wellness products among Targets and like Neiman Marcus and all these other retailers. But I do think it was because consumers were demanding it and you saw those sales dollars. So then the retailers wanted to buy into that. And then as a result, now you're seeing, VC firms and investors also want to get behind it because they know that consumers want it and consumers do need it. And so I think that not the entire country is not fully on board quite yet. But I think merging the beauty wellness component helps like ease, at least for us, we find that like subtly introducing these products to women in particular allows them to feel comfortable and explore their bodies and really start taking care of their bodies, where before they might have been spending all this money on their face, but going to CVS and spending $2 on their body lotions, let alone other wellness products. So I think we're just like in this really cool movement right now where everyone's trying to figure out like the merging of these different categories, which is only going to benefit women and men by having more innovation and products in this category.
I just remember during the pandemic, we did like every other day. It was a story that was like the quietest vibrators that your roommate won't hear, the quietest vibrator for when you're quarantining at home with your parents. Like, it just was like nonstop. But I think you bring up a really important point with this idea that sexual wellness, like, you don't need a partner for that, obviously, and like to build your confidence and like take care of your own sexual wellness. Like, you don't need another person for that. And I think it's easy to get caught up in that, but like I think that part of the conversation is starting to shift too, right?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I remember being in the pandemic and I was single in the beginning, and so I was like, "This is miserable. What do I do?" And that's like when I feel like a lot of people started to like self explore more than ever, especially women, because and when you think about it, like men start like playing with themselves in middle school, they get real acquainted with their body very young. But like, when do women have that same experience? And it's never talked about. You really don't talk. We never learned about that in sex ed, let alone like maybe you see your gynecologist once a year. Like I had my annual today. We hardly talked about sex, right? You talk about STDs and if you're still with the same partner, and that's like the level of education we get. And so with the pandemic, we just had a lot of time. We were bored, and it's like, okay, let's learn about our bodies more. Like I feel this need. How do we like satisfy ourselves? So I think it's fun because now a lot of women are like, all right, well, I don't really like that person anymore. I don't need to be with them because I'm good with just me.
Yeah, like I mean, it's like I think I was like in college or like after college when I was like, oh, you guys do this too? Like I was like, oh, like you like because like women don't talk about it.
Yes.
It's like,
Not at
oh, cool.
all.
I was like, I'm not weird. Cool, cool, cool. But I do think I feel like now like every conversation on this podcast always turns to like the TikTok generation and Gen Z because I'm always like, they're changing everything. They're doing it so much
Oh,
better than we used
they
to.
really are.
But it does like it feels like I mean all this thing is happening all of these things are not happening in a vacuum obviously like people like there's a reason why you know the conversation is starting to shift at the same time as there are better products like it all feels like we're taking a lot of steps forward and how do you think this like I feel like was it millennials that were the overshare generation I don't know if we were the overshare generation like what Gen Z is but they're talking about all of this stuff in ways that like
Yes.
we certainly never did. So do you think that that's I guess what are your thoughts on that and how do you think that's played into like what came first? The conversation, the shifting of availability, where how did this all happen? That like we're even
Well, I
sitting
feel
here
like
having this
it's
conversation.
true, and it's true. Like where you're like, oh, you ask your friend, you're like, wait, you do that too? So I'm not weird. Like we all do this. Like what? And it's like those are could be your best friend, right? Like you do not talk once you're in a relationship specifically. You really stop talking about sex. You stop talking about like your crazy whatever it might be, like your crazy nights with someone. And so, because it almost is like, yeah, it is taboo, right? Like you're not casually getting coffee at 8 a.m. with your coworker and being like, how was sex with your boyfriend last night? Mine was freaking amazing, right? Like that is just not like in society's terms appropriate. But I do think that like with social media, it gives so much education on like what's out there for so many different sectors of life and in products and industries. And so I think that social media personally, especially TikTok, helps people connect the dots a little bit more, being like, I'm not alone. Someone out there does this too. And I think that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is that now, like, understanding that there are a bunch of people who are in the same boat and also like feel comfortable talking about sex. Like you now have these influencers or people who would say what you might not feel comfortable saying, but you really resonate with the education that they're providing or the perspective on dating and intimacy. And so I think that social media has done a great job just having these conversations, right? Like there's so much, especially TikTok, where you don't need a million followers to create like a really great video. You can say what you feel. And so whether they're a sex therapist or just someone who's like exploring and learning about like dating or just broke up with their boyfriend or planning a wedding, like there's so many different aspects of relationships, which then can naturally lead into conversations about intimacy and sex, which I think has played the biggest part. I think Gen Zers are also a little bit more open and fluid about their identities, which has helped with this conversation. But on the flip side, I also think that social media, like, I can't imagine. I still remember being in high school. Like, I lost my virginity in college, and I always thought like it was this like shameful thing. You didn't want anyone to know. It was the big, big secret. Well, like, think about Gen Zers who like live with social media. Like, as soon as they get intimate with someone, like the chances of someone finding out via Snapchat or whatever it might be is pretty high. So I think the level of like there's the stakes are high for Gen Zers, I think, to be sexually active when they first start being so. And so I think that's a tough play. And so I think self exploration and self pleasure has risen in the Gen Z consumer as well because of that.
Huh, that's interesting. I had not thought about it that way. I'm trying to remember back like
Yeah.
I had Facebook in high school. No one was spilling secrets really on there or
Right,
like
exactly. No
sharing in
one
the
was like,
same
because
way.
information gets transferred like this in high school these days. And so, I mean, that was just through talking to different people who do cover sexual wellness and have like siblings or children in that age group. But that's obviously, I'm not a Gen Zer, but that is at least my takeaway from what I'm observing.
Yeah, but I think like, you know, like I was saying before, like finding out from my friends, like, oh, you guys do like the self pleasure thing too. Cool. But like there's like also stuff that like I am in my 30s and there's stuff that I've discovered like within the last 2 years and been like, oh, this is a thing that like other like being concerned about like what you smell like when you go home from a bar to hook up.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, this is a thing that I'm not the only one who feels this way. Or like maybe, I don't know, wanting to clean up after a hookup. Like, oh, other people feel that like and I don't know Like, I feel like there's just like, I imagine, I already feel like so much less alone and all of that stuff. So I imagine for, young women who are not in their 30s and are learning these things much younger than I did, it's,
Same
it's pretty
here.
amazing.
It's also like I went to a dinner with a bunch of founders in this space, and we talked about like our upbringing, and a lot of us like never even talked about sex with our parents, whereas now I think the millennial parents are also being more open with their Gen Z children, or maybe like whatever it might be, where I think that also plays a part into feeling more comfortable and having those conversations too. We still have a ways to go.
Yeah. So we'll get into the routine part of Routine Rundown. I feel like because we're talking about all things intimacy, is there a routine that you have that makes you feel like sexy, ready to go? Or just sexy in general?
That's a great question. Well, I feel like getting like sexiness to me is just like a feeling, right? It's like an aura of confidence. And so for me, whenever I'm like, okay, I'm ready to like be in the mood, whether it's going out to dinner with girlfriends or getting intimate, I feel like setting the tone with a really good playlist, and it doesn't have to be like sexy vibes. For me, Taylor Swift all the way really gets me in the right mood. Lighting candles is another piece of me just like getting out of my head for whatever reason. Like that's a huge part of my routine at night. And a lot of times it's like putting on like an outfit that I feel really good in, whether that's like adorable set of PJs that I am so comfortable in, or getting ready in a really cute dress. I feel like for me, confidence, there's like an inner to outer confidence process, and then also like an outer to in part of confidence too. So like I love curling my hair and putting on a really fun lip color, and like to me then that's when I feel really confident. But also dancing to the music while the lights are dimmed with the candles going on with a really nice scent is how I also feel really good about getting ready. And that's really my favorite like setup routine. Got my music, I'm listening to that, I see the candle, and then I'm either sipping on like a tea or like lemon water or a glass of wine. So I'm like trying to touch a few different senses to get me into that mood of feeling confident, feeling sexy, whether it's in the bedroom or out of the apartment.
I love that. I'm laughing because like my mom's one piece of relationship / marriage advice was always don't go to bed in ugly pajamas. And I'm like, that's so old fashioned and so stupid. But like now I've invested in like, they're not like sexy pajamas, but they're just like cute pajamas that I feel good getting into bed in. And I'm like, okay, maybe she was a little bit right. I'm like, this feels nice.
It does. It's funny. I had one of my best friends, like I used to wear like pajamas that I had since I was like 12 years old when I was like 25. My one friend's like, Brittany, like your pajamas are gross. Like, what are you doing? And this is when I was like fully single. She's like, you really need to like step up your PJ game. I was like, no one sees me. What are you talking about? But then I got a pair of like the J super soft cotton pajamas, forever hitch. And so I love having my Beia purple pajamas. Then I have like my red ones for Christmas. And so again, I think your mom has a point. It's like, those aren't maybe like sexy lingerie types, but they are comfortable, they are fun, and I don't know, I get in a mood when I put them on every night.
Yeah, and like to be clear, has nothing to do with my boyfriend. I walk around like looking like trash all the time in front of him, but like when I go, I'm like, I just like want to like have sweet dreams and look cute and like feel good.
And that's the secret, right? It's like so many times when you're like, okay, you're gonna wear this cute like outfit for whoever. But then you get to a point in age, you're like, screw it. It's about myself. Like, what do I feel good in? What makes me feel sexy, right? It's like, how do we fill up our own cup? And I think that's a big part of like feeling sexy and feeling confident and having that sexual confidence. It's like, if you're doing it for someone else, you're never going to feel 100% confident in your own body because you're trying to please someone else. Whereas if you just focus on you, like that's when that true sexy aura and confidence really shine. So no matter who's around you, they're going to want to associate with you, be with you. And I think that was like a transition that I had to figure out is like, what does sexy mean? It's not what you look like. It's not the lingerie you wear. But it's like, how do you like get into the best headspace, the right like mindset, and just have a fun time.
I love it. Well, Brittany, thank you so much. This was so fun. I feel like we could
So
gab
fun.
about our sex lives probably for hours, but I will spare
all
my
the
mom
time.
this. I'm like, I know my mom listens to this. I know my boyfriend's grandma listens to this. So we'll keep it as PG. We'll catch up later.
But maybe part 2 for season 3.
Yeah.
Part 2 we'll have, and we'll do a different edition.
NSFW. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brittany. We love Beia. Everybody should do what makes you feel sexy is really the takeaway. And if that's wipes and intimacy serum, they've got you covered.